This is Computer Programming University, and I'm really pressed for time, but I had some thoughts I wanted to share with you guys. Today I want to talk about how you can potentially calculate passage of time or time between time or hours between hour using basic programming constructs. So if you're using something more advanced like Perl, C++, Python, there's going to be basically functions or modules that are already set up that can do a lot of things with time, regarding time, right? So these are one of the advantages of using such languages. But what about when you don't have access to those things? You're using something like Corn shell, Bourne shell, C shell, right? Don't have access to any special time operator or anything like that. I mean, all you have is basically like the date command, basic arithmetic, using the let command and things like that. How do you calculate time passage? So what I mean by that is, let's say you're building some kind of alarm clock. You want to know, so the current time is 10 p.m. How much time until 11 p.m.? 1 hour, right? But how do you develop something that will make that calculation? How much time, right now it's 12 p.m. How much time until it's going to be 6 p.m., right? Or, you get the idea. So time between time. How much time will occur between this time and this time? Current time and future time specified by the user. All right, so I have some thoughts on that, and I want to share with you how you can this is kind of a MacGyver, because again, to do something like this, ideally you'd want to use something more advanced that's going to give you access to more advanced time functions, but you don't always have that luxury. So what do you do? All right, so let's get right into it. You guys that are listening right now, click on that like button as usual, not for my ego, for YouTube. If you don't support the channel by doing simple things like clicking on the like button and commenting, then the channel goes away, the videos go away. If you enjoy the content, support the content. Just click the like button. Again, it's not for my ego. I'm good, but I really want to build something where I can do a lot more content and bring a lot more value to you. And to do that, I'm really dependent on you guys and your support. So click on that like button, really appreciate it. All right, so let's go ahead and get on the board here and get the party started. Okay. I'm keeping an eye on the comment section as best I can. I got limited time, but I'll try my best to keep an eye on the comment section. All right, so let's get to it. So time between time. I think I've explained it pretty clearly in terms of time between time. Let's get on the board and see what I'm talking about. All right. So right now it is 12 p.m. That is current time. Right? Let's make a little time scale or whatever, timeline. That is current time. All right? Now we want the user to enter a time in the future. Let's say the user enters 3 p.m. and we want to know the difference between these two times, right? Obviously, we know the answer is 3 hours. I put a 3 here. That's a difference in time. But we want to develop a script that will calculate this. On the surface, it may sound like it's very easy to do, but there are some complications that you're going to run into, which I'd like to discuss. First of all, this is an easy one. For the most part, this is an easier one, I should say, because we can simply do arithmetic and make a basic calculation and figure this out. The difference in times. Now, there actually is a little bit of a complication here, because at 12 p.m., if this is 12 p.m., And actually, you know what? If this is actually, I'm thinking of 12 a.m. So this is 12 a.m., this is 3 a.m. So that's pretty easy because we can simply do the math and count between the two. But what happens, or what makes this more complicated, is remember time goes up and time goes down, right? So let's look at how time works. Let me show you the complication that you're going to run into. It's not always going to be basic math where you can just calculate the difference between two, because an easier example is, what's the difference between 1 p.m. and 3 p.m., right? That's pretty easy because we're going on the same system. It's 1, 2, 3. I mean, you can do basic math on that. But what happens if you want to know the time between 1 p.m. and 3 a.m.? Because remember, when you get to 11 p.m., 12 a.m., then it's going to drop down to 1 a.m. And that's where you're going to potentially run into a problem. But the main thing, or the main strategy that I would like to discuss with you is, how do you calculate the time difference? So this is the way that I would potentially approach this from the beginning. So basically, we have current time of, let's say, 1 p.m. And we want to know how much time between 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. All right, so here we have 1 p.m., 2 p.m., 3 p.m., and then 4 p.m. What's the time difference? Obviously, we know it's 4 hours, but how do we calculate this? Is entering this, because this is current time. So this is going to be, you know, whatever the time is. But the 4 p.m. is going to be what the user enters. So for something like this, I would use, for example, in a corn shell, we could use the read command and use the read command to get this value. What time in the future do you want us to figure out the time difference of? So basically, the way that would work, hopefully you guys can see this, you would type in read, and then you're going to type in, let's say, F time for future time, and then you're going to put a question mark at the end, and then in quotations, you're going to talk to the user and tell them what you want. So you can say enter time. You get the idea. Enter time. So when you run this script that has this line of code, the user is going to be prompted with enter time. Whatever they type in is going to be assigned to the variable F time. All right? So now you have this variable F time, which represents 4 p.m., and then your script can pull the current time by using the date command, obviously. You use the date command and assign that to a variable. So you have current time and you have future time. So how do you calculate the difference in times? This is what I would like to suggest, potentially, as a way to do this. Now, all you want to do, now we're not going to get as complicated as talking about minutes and seconds. We're going to keep it simple, just talk about hours. All we want to do is count the steps between the times, right? Now, if you were to just, like you do it as a human looking at this, you could say, okay, 1 p.m., 2 p.m., that's 1 hour, 3 p.m., right? And you could simply count the hours and give yourself the difference. I said the time wrong before, but basically you could count the steps there and it would be that easy. But the thing about it is how to do it in a program. So what I would say is, potentially what you could do is you could have an array, and in that array you can have all the potential values of times. So we can say, let's start with, and we'll do military time. So let's say And I'm just going to do it shorthand, so I'll just have the hour itself. So we'll say 0, 100 hours, and then you have 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 7 a.m., 8 a.m., 9 a.m., 10 a.m., right? And we can continue. I'm just going to do the second line so you can see it. So 11, right? And then we have 12 p.m. So now this is p.m. now. 12 p.m., 1 p.m., 2 p.m. You get the idea. All the way up to 11 p.m. Right? So we can put these into an array. And I'll tell you why we're doing this. We're doing this because, again, we need to count the difference between these times, right? So what I'm doing here is I'm putting out all the potential values, right? This is our counting system. Now, the first problem is we need to start at the time, the current time, right? So now, getting more advanced, there's languages that probably allow you to target a specific, I believe you refer to these as positional parameters. So you can target and say, I want to go to this one. And you have to figure out the logic of how do you say, this. And I think that could be pretty easily done because you have them in numerical order. And also, you, the designer of the program, you can know where each hour is, what position each hour is. So the user is telling you 1 p.m. Your code already knows which position 1 p.m. is in, so you can go straight there. But that's getting a little more complex. Let's do something more basic. You're not on that level, you don't have a language that has that capability, whatever the situation is. How can you, just using very, very basic logic, do this? Now, what you can do is, you have to think about, you're going into this blind, right? Now, with your eyes, you can see, oh, there's 1 p.m. and there's 1 p.m. Okay, we're going to count from here to 4. So we're going to go from here, and we go 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. Okay, the difference between 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. is 3 hours. All right. But if you're blind, you have no way to target this. All you know how to do is you're dumb, right? We're talking real basic, is go from the beginning to end. How does that work? Well, using if-then logic, we can go through this list until we match this number, right? So we specify current time as a variable, right? And we can assign each of these values in the array as another variable. So let's say, let's call this t position, right? So t position, or time position, is going to be the variable. So each one of these, so this will be, so t position in our loop, we're going to use a loop, obviously, to go through this. In our loop, this is called t position, right? First iteration, t position is 0. Second iteration, t position is 1. Third iteration, t position is 3, right? So now, what are we doing? We're trying to get to 1, right? Because everything starts at 1. We need to get to position 1 to start counting up to 4. So all we do, simple if-then logic, right? So you start your loop. Again, the loop is going to go through this list from left to right, right? And we say, if t position is less than current time, right? We can let a variable equal 0 or something like that, because we don't want to start counting it. So we can say time difference. We'll have another variable called time difference. Time difference could be our answer. That's what we want. We want to get time difference. So we can say t difference is our variable that we want to get, right? So we can say if this is less than current time, t difference equals 0. Next iteration, we'll go to 1. If t position is less than current time, right, then time difference equals 0. But in this case, it's not less than, right? So that if-then statement is going to fail here. We're going to test this condition. Is this less than this? Is this number 1 less than this number 1, which is current time? It's not. They're equal, right? So that first if is going to fail. Second if, we can say if position p time is equal to current time, then let the value equal to be 1, right? So now we've added 1. That's the first value for this thing that we're trying to calculate. We're trying to calculate time difference. So once we find that the current time is equal to the number in our array, we can start off by setting that value to be 1. Now we can have another if-then statement. If it's greater than the current time value, then we can let the p time equal p time plus 1, right? So every time we go through this and we find a number that is higher than the current time, we're going to add 1, right? So when we get to the third iteration of our loop, and we check, is current time less than this number? 1 p.m. is not less than 2, right? So that condition fails. Is this time equal to that time? No, 2 is higher than 1. It's going to fail in that statement as well. Is 2 higher than 1? Yes. So since 2 is higher than 1, we are going to add 1 to our time difference variable, right? Then we go through the fourth iteration. Once again, we fail on this being less than the current time. We fail on this being equal to the current time. And now we're going to pass on this being greater than current time. So therefore, we're going to add a 1 again. So you see what we did. When these values were equal, we made time difference equal to 1. When they were greater, we added another 1. So first time it was 1, then we added another 1 because this was greater than 1, and then we added another 1 again because again it's greater than 1. So at that point in time, our variable of time difference would equal 3, which is in fact the answer. Now, one of the problems with this, some of you guys may see a problem with this. So this works very nicely for when we're going across like that. So everything works out very smoothly and logically. Get to the end of our array. Maybe in certain languages, you have the ability to loop through your array. You get to the end and you go back to the beginning. Or perhaps we use some form of indexed array where we have the ability to specify an if condition that if you get to the end of the array, go back to the first position, right? That's not that complicated. But another way, again, thinking very, very simple, basic stuff, trying to be a little bit clever here. I'm gonna tell you a strategy on how you can deal with, let's say, the current time is at the end of the array. So this started out in the morning, then these are PM hours. So we have 11 PM. So if the current time is 11 PM, and you want to know how much time until 3 AM, we would need to continue and get over here to get to 3 AM. How do you do that? There's a problem with that, but I'm going to show you how you can do that. Just bear with me 1 second. Okay, I see a point curve says if it's 12 p.m. and 3 p.m., it should be 12 plus 3 equals 18. I don't quite think that would work out, but I'm going to show you guys the answer to this problem. And again, there's more complex ways of doing this, but I'm going to show you a simple way to do it. What you can do is simply expand your array. Remember, all you're using this array for is a sort of an abacus, really. Using it as an abacus. This is a position counting mechanism. That's the only purpose of this. This allows us as a marker to, figure out where we are, and it's like a ruler. It's like a temporal ruler is really what this is. This is the ruler at which we use to measure time. That is the only purpose, right? So what you can do is expand this array. So don't use the array that I have here. Use an array that loops itself. Remember I said you could use maybe a language that allows you to loop the array. But what if you loop the array itself? What do I mean by that? Just do the loop in the array. So you do it, right? We get to 11 p.m. and then you continue. You go to 0, 100, and then you go 1, 2, 3, and you go all the way up to, so that's in the morning, to 11 a.m. And then you end your array here, right? I don't know why that looks like a 3. Then you end your array here. So what does that allow you to do? Remember, this is just a ruler. This doesn't have to be just all the times from 0, 100 to 11 p.m. It can be as many numbers in there as possible. You can as many as you want. Doesn't matter. All that matters is we need to be able to find the current time in here, and we need to have enough space to count all the way to whatever future time the user has entered. So in order to do that, all we need to do is add more time in here, more spots, more notches on our ruler. So now look what happens. If the current time is 11 p.m. and the user wants to know, they want to know what the difference is between 11 p.m. and 3 a.m., this is what happens. We go through our loop, right? We're looking for, so let's change up the values here. So it's 11 p.m. and we want to get to 3 a.m. using the same logic that I showed you guys before. All right? So we need to find, we're going to keep going through this array until the current time is equal to the value in the array, right? So 0, 100, less than current time. Less than current time, less than current time. So all of these are mornings, all the way up to 10 a.m., 11 a.m., all of these less than current time. So we've got to keep going. So now we're at 12 p.m. 12 p.m., 1 p.m., 2 p.m., 3 p.m., 4 p.m., 5 p.m., 6 p.m., 7 p.m., 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10 p.m., 11 p.m. All right. Current time equals the time in our array. So now we can set our time difference value to be 1. Time difference value is now 1 because we have a match. And now because we've extended our array, we can continue counting. So the problem we have here, however, is obviously that value is actually less than, mathematically speaking, it's less than this. So if we follow our previous logic, we're going to run into an issue in terms of this being less than. That means for that iteration of the loop, we're not going to add a value to our time difference. However, if we incorporate logic into our program to where it understands the transition from 11 p.m. to 0, hours, if it understands that, then pretty much we put an if condition in there that will see if current time is equal to, or actually we should probably do it in an array. We don't want to do it from there because we want to deal with the issue of when in the array we're looping over to time is going down, right? Even though it's progressing, mathematically it's going down. We're going from 11 to 0, so that's mathematically going down. So we can say in our logic somewhere that if the position time, or P time I think we call this, if P time is equal to 11, right? Well, actually, we should be using military time. So if P time is equal to 23, right, the 23rd hour, then we can incorporate logic to where we continue counting. Or I think a better way to design this, to make it simpler, because I think that's overcomplicated, a little bit cumbersome, is once we match the time, once we match the current time in the array, every step beyond that should be added. there will be no step where you're not going to add 1, right? So we can put in our logic something that recognizes that you have matched. So once we go through the list, we go through the list 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. We're not doing any addition yet. 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Then we get to 11. All right, current time matches position time. All right, so now from here on in, our new logic is every new position, we're going to add 1. So therefore, now we're at 1, right? Now we get to 0, hours, right? And actually, in fact, let's make a correction. At 11, we shouldn't have 1 value. We should actually be 0. We don't want to start counting until we leave the position. So make a correction to that logic. So when the P time and current time are equal, it's still 0. So we could make that logic for when P time is equal to or less than current time, then set the variable to 0, right? Equal to or less than. We only start adding once we move beyond the position of current time, right? So P time, current time equal. Our variable is 0. And now we go to the next step, and once we start going beyond that, we can start adding every single step. Doesn't matter what the number is, we always add 1. Now the only thing here is, if we say that when current time and P time are equal, then we set the value to 0, right? If it's less than or equal to, then what happens when we go to 0, right? Well, actually 0 is, yeah, because 0 is it's less than or equal to. So 0 is less than or equal to. It's less than, right? That's a condition, less than or equal to. So the fact that this is less than means it qualifies for a 0. So we said it's less than or equal to 0, make that a 0. So we still would need to change the mode of how this thing works once we have made a match. Once you make a match, you need to change, probably go into another loop. That's what I would do potentially. I would break out of this loop. I think break is a command you use like in corn. I would break out of this loop and go into another loop that doesn't care what the numerical values are. Every step, you're going to start counting. So you keep counting until both these values are equal. So that's the first mission. First mission is to find the time in the array, right? So you're just going through looking for the time, looking for the time, looking for the time, looking for the time, looking for the time. Once you find it, break out of that array. You no longer are seeking. Seeking logic is over. We're done with that. We have found the time. You don't need to go through here searching for the current time. So now you want to do mathematics. You're adding the time difference. So you can break out of the first loop, go into a second loop that doesn't care what these numerical values are. All it cares about is every time we move a position, you're going to add 1. So in this case, we move one position, that's going to be 1 hour. Move another position, that's going to be 2 hours. Move another position, that's going to be 3 hours, right? Move another position, that's going to be 4 hours. Now, the time was 11. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? So between 11 p.m. and 3 a.m., there's 4 hours, and that's how we could easily figure that out. Right? And no matter what the value is, we'll always, every time we move a step, we keep adding and adding. So it doesn't matter what it is, we're always going to get the correct answer. Now, that's just dealing with hours. Now, what if you want to calculate minutes and seconds? That's a whole another story. And that is for you guys to figure out. I just gave you guys food for thought. Ran this on a little bit longer than I planned on, but it was all good. I just wanted to share that with you guys. So hopefully this was educational for you and you enjoyed it. I got so much stuff to do. But I was inspired. I was like, let me just do something, share with you guys. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Anyway, this is a Computer Programming University, and remember, learning should always be fun. So always smile. Now, you guys comment below and let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know how you would approach this strategy or this problem How would you solve it without using any special time functions? Nothing beyond like date, for example, the date command in Unix. What would you do? How would you solve this? All right, and if you have any questions, go ahead and post them in bottom and let me know. And until the next stream, enjoy.